Welcome back. Chapter 14. Aiden should have regretted going after Eva, but for the life of him, and after that kiss, he couldn't drum up enough reason on the regret side of the board to get behind that particular emotion. The feelings were too strong, the taste of her way too good. So much so that he knew he'd do what he had to do to steal what moments he could for however long he had. And yeah, sure, she'd given him her directives about it being a thing for that one night and all that. But if her response to him in the stairway was any indications of her feelings, there was definitely room for negotiation in that area of their verbal agreement. He may have been temporarily thrown by her initial declaration and followed her advice, staying away from her as she directed, but that was only because his head was a little fuzzy after their amazing night together. Thus, he made the mistake of blindly following her lead. But that time was past. Okay. He was never one to blindly follow anyone's lead, and now he felt the fool for listening to her and talking himself into believing she was right about it being the best for both of them. All that chatter went out the window when he looked at her face to face. And to think he wasted 4 perfectly good nights tossing and turning with nothing but memories of her, when he could have been between her delicious thighs making memories. Aiden grinned, pleased with his decision and logic, and the fact that all it took was a kiss and the spark was there again. The veil had lifted. Little Miss Ice Princess couldn't fool him. Hell, she could barely fool herself. She had a tell, and it was written all over her face in every hot, angry look she shot his way. I don't even like you like that. Those words, though, caused Aiden to pause in his walk back to the van. She said she didn't like him, and yet she yielded to him and kissed him with a passion like none he'd ever experienced. Aiden licked his lips. She didn't like him. Most of the time, she probably wanted to throttle him, and the rest of the time, he was sure she wanted to have sex with him. So, what was it now? Was what she was feeling closer to pain or pleasure? She might call it something closer to pain, but that pain was passion, and he knew it. Aiden shook his head and ran a frustrated hand through his hair as he made his way back to the van. Rare niggles of doubt going at him that he desperately wanted to sweep away. Damn it, if he wasn't right about her feelings, then he was the pompous jerk she pegged him to be. Aiden made it back to the van and looked at the monitors. Seeing her wipe the corners of her mouth, then hit him once again with one of those scorn filled to stay for the finale and hang on their every word. The segment is short. Hold on one second. Why draw this out? We can head to the next location and have the car bring them along. He was met with silence, and in that silence, Aiden could feel Lou questioning reproach. Finally, she spoke. Come on, Aiden. You know it's best to have more footage than less. We're in the third hour here. With her social media numbers, the viewers will clamor for more. Web extras and all that. They sure as hell won't be turning in for yet another mommy makeover. Besides, you never know what may transpire without us watching. She slick. She telling him that she know without telling him she know. And the laws of reality TV say if something will happen, it will probably be when we're not watching. She telling him. So we have to keep watching all the time. Besides, she got a nice chemistry going with this guy. The viewers will love him. That comment drew him up short. Of course the viewers would. But did she really have chemistry with him? Aiden stared at the monitor. With Eva, it was hard to tell. And Lou was right. Something could happen when they weren't looking. But as tense as he wasn't in the mood to watch. He ran his hand through his hair again. Damn it. He seriously needed to get some perspective on this thing. It was bound to bite him in the ass in the long run if he didn't play it right. He looked at the screen again, watched as Eva leaned ever so slightly towards Prescott. Not a lot, but enough to show she was interested in not being off-putting. It was just enough to give him the go-ahead signal, so he now extracted his hand from hers and let it smoothly trail up to slip around her shoulders. Fine, we'll split the crew. You don't need all of us, and you can handle things here without me. I'm going to check in with Mitch here at the restaurant, he said, speaking of the first grip. Still, there was a bit of long, drawn-out silence, and he was about to take off his headset and leave when Lou's voice came back over. Okay, I'll see you there. Great. I'll make sure everything is at the ready. He tried to bring a bit more easiness to his voice. This wasn't that deep. It's not like he was in a war zone or out on a jungle trek. This was an easy piece, but though it was light, it was important to Louisa and the rest of the crew. He couldn't let his personal shit get in the way of her and anyone else's job. And thanks for being on top of things, he said by way of a sign-off before removing his earphones and getting some much-needed distance between him and Eva. Well, distance for now. As for later, he made no promises. After the opera finished, Eva could barely make it through the dinner with Prescott. She was so preoccupied with Aiden's surprise out of the blue sneak attack. The man was incorrigible, and she knew she needed to find some way to deal with the problem that was Aiden Walker once and for good. During her dinner with Prescott, Aiden had played his laid-back observation game and hadn't said a word to her directly. She was starting to get his deal and understand his style of working, at least in mixed company, and at least with her. It was broad from a distance, while giving all his directive to Lou and to one of the other crew members on staff. He spent an inordinate amount of time talking into his headset or looking at the monitor and had barely spared her a glance. It was ridiculous, and it was driving her mad, which she thought might be his ultimate objective. Well, it wouldn't work. His clear and obvious avoidance of her, though it made it that much harder for her to concentrate on the work at hand, made her that much determined to put all she had into doing a good job and putting on a hell of a show. This ordeal for the cameras would not be in vain, not if she can help it. She'd come out on top and have her reputation and her life back. Her name, as well as the ward name and company, would stand for comebacks. Over a light meal of after opera tapas and drinks in what she was sure would have normally been a romantic eatery, given the right circumstances and company, she and Prescott played their part well. Though sadly, now that they were one-on-one, minus the crew, he was doing the ultimate date dulled down trick of going on about his net worth, how most women were concerned with his bank account, and what he could do for them if they wanted to reciprocate in kind. Whatever the hell that meant, and honestly, Eva wasn't sure she had the energy or the interest to even unpack what she was afraid it meant. She was trying her hardest not to go there, but with all his talk about money and figures, she was getting the distinct feeling he considered a night out a down payment for sex. She fought not to fidget in her seat and really focus on what he was saying. Thankfully, he shifted gears and now asked her about what she did. My job is really not all that exciting. Mostly looking for ways to make popular people even more popular, or putting out fires in the media made by those popular people or some unthinkable company bigwig. Prescott flashed a smile that, upon critical study, Eva could honestly say was charming. She leaned in a bit closer, hoping to feel the connection and at least get a fizzle of a spark that would tell her he would be the one that she could at least come to an arrangement with, if not a full-on romantic connection. He really was a nice guy, nice enough if she gave the reciprocate comment a pass. It was kind of amazing that he was still single. So putting out fires, Is that what you're doing here now on this date? She pulled back and gave him a teasing look. Are you implying there's some sort of spark? He shook his head, took a long pull from his drink as he adjusted his tie and gave her a deep gaze, then leaned back and licked his lip as if he were imagining how she would taste. Eva felt her lips tighten in response. She bet that look probably worked on a lot of women. Honestly, up until this moment, not so much. But now you have me intrigued. It was that hint of fire during our on air tirade that got me to apply for the show. Though, I will say you weren't at your best, but it's okay. I like a little fire in my women. Eva's brows went up as Prescott leaned in close to her ear. Always that much more fun when I break them. Okay? And bingo, the reason he was still single was revealed. Eva wrenched back in her chair, crossed her legs and arm, and gave him a hard stare as she tilted her head. What the ever-loving hell? And then, as if by some invisible force, she looked past him to the camera that was set up in the back corner of the restaurant before bringing her gaze back to Prescott. Women, you say? Isn't that interesting? Well, I'm glad you have more than one who will go along with your foolishness, because this one is not a horse or any other such animal that need to be tamed or, God forbid, broken. That sounds quite. She tilted her head before taking a sip of her cocktail. Harsh. Go ahead, Eva, tell him who he think he is. Prescott's brows drew together in somehow not all that surprising flash of anger as he shifted in his seat. But he took another long swig from his drink and then looked back at her with a slightly calculated smile. Hey, I was only kidding around, just joking, you know. No need to get your panties in a bunch because you bring out the beast in a man. Besides, one woman's broken is another's blessed. What? Eva coughed, the drink going down the wrong way. She looked over at Prescott, staring with a way too smug and confident expression for a man who had just delivered such a line. Eva laughed. Did you practice that? His brows drew together. What are you talking about? Because I can't believe that crap rolled off your tongue and you really say such things to women on the first date? She looked around, taking in the lighting and the crew, catching a glimpse of Aiden in the shadows. He probably got a real kick out of this. She shook her head. And on camera, no less? Maybe you're being uptight. Have you ever stopped to think you might need to loosen up a bit? There are things I see in you, hidden depths that I know I could bring out in you. Okay. Okay. His comment, though made off the cuff, suggested too many shades of Kevin wannabe and hit Eva where she was already hurting. Uh-oh, he in trouble. Get him, girl. She nodded and stood. Thanks for a mostly lovely evening. Good thing it's on the station and you won't need to worry about how bunch my panties happen to be. And I won't have to worry about owing you any reciprocation for the bill. And for the record, I'm fine just as I am and definitely don't need a man like you to bring out any hidden depths. And side note, just because there was a popular book that eluded shades of bondage, not every woman fantasizes about being broken. It's called fiction for a reason. I suggest getting a new line. Good night. She read you, boo. Eva felt a storm raging in her brain as she fought to hold on to what little control she had left. The nerve of that ass. How many men would unjustly and, mind you, unrightfully accuse her of being uptight and then have the gall to act like they had some duty to turn her out sexually, as if... Wait a minute, I think Aiden did that on the slide because he's smooth like that. She was just making her way towards the coat check area when Aiden caught up with her. Are you all right? She sucked in a deep breath, then let it out slowly. And here comes another one. Another man who thought he knew her so fucking well, but only knew what she let him to see. Why couldn't he lay back and leave her alone? She didn't need him catching her in yet another emotional moment storming off. I'm fine, as if you really care. Sorry to disappoint you, but you're not catching me in another meltdown. I've got it perfectly together. Of course you do, he started. And I'm not here to catch you in another meltdown. As I told you already, you can trust me. She raised a brow. Really? And we saw earlier at the opera house how good you are with keeping your word. Aiden's brows drew together as he pulled her in with a long stare. His gaze moved from her eyes to her lips, causing her to unconsciously swallow and lick them to swell the sudden dryness. He laughed, which pulled her up short and made her want to smack the smug look off his face. As if you are always 100% truthful. Don't try and play me, Miss Ward. Now, how about we go ahead and film your confessional now? He looked down towards her lips, seeing that you're all mic'd and it's been a long day. The reminder of the mic and the fact that she just hinted at their time in the stairwell wasn't lost on her. She let out a long breath as his gaze went back to hers. This time it was filled with so much heat she felt she would ignite right there in the restaurant vestibule. That way we can get you in a car and home in bed sooner rather than later. Eva's brows went up at his mention of her bed and the challenge in his stare. Just as she thought, here was another man thinking he could somehow change her life with the magic of what he had between his legs. Unfortunately, though, the heat of his gaze had her nipples hardening, and she wanted desperately to jump him then and there. She frowned and shook her head. Point me to the camera. The quicker I get this over with, the quicker I can get home. Hey! That's the end of chapter 14. Ooh! It's getting hot in here. Getting hot in here. So, I don't have nothing to say except that I like this chapter. Oh, it got me. Ooh, what's getting ready to happen next? So I'm going to see y'all in the next chapter. See you in chapter 15. Bye.